How's it going, everybody? Matt McNeil coming to you from the garage. Just got back from Mask Fest a couple of days ago. Had a fantastic time meeting everybody that I got to shake hands with. So I'm definitely going to do it again. But I'm now back in my awesomely messy garage. And I am making masks again. And what I wanted to talk about really quick is I poured this blank last night. And because it cured overnight, what happens is if you let a mask sit in the mold for overnight or longer, the latex, when it shrinks, starts to pull away from the edges of the inside of the mold. And since I like to foam inside the mold, what then also happens is because it pulls away, the flash, the seam, see this is the seam here, is still trapped in between the two halves of the mold. And what that does is, unfortunately, it holds your casting hostage. While everything that's separated from the mold has shrunk, you end up deforming your mask because the mask is being held in place by this seam line. So when that happens, because I'm pretty picky about this stuff, I will oftentimes, as in this case, open up the back of the mold very carefully and then come in here and free this seam line area. Now, it doesn't look like much, right? But if you add that up all the way around and assume that before I did this, that this mask was pulled tight here. This edge here was all the way up there. So again, you know, it's, I don't know, what is that, 1/8 of an inch? So you're looking at 1/4 of an inch deformation on all of the facial features and on the back of the head. So again, what I do is I pull the back of the mold off. I release the tension from that seam line. I'll put the back of the mold back on and I'll strap this mold back together. And what that does is it'll still hold everything in place. It'll still foam within the confines of the mold itself. But what it won't do is it won't squeeze the face this way. So you'll end, it's a really slight thing. But again, if you spend a long time sculpting something, you want each one of these masks to come out like what you sculpted. Now, maybe for some sorts of creatures and things like that, it's not as noticeable. But if you're doing a likeness sculpt and you take pictures side by side of one that's been foamed in the mold before the latex has pulled away from the inside of the mold and one that's been foamed after, to my eye, there is a noticeable difference. So that's what I do. And I'm getting ready to foam this guy, and we will see how that goes. Now, one of the other things that I did before on my Ed Wolf, because that mold was so big and so heavy, actually, there's the mold back there. It was a 3-piece mold. And foaming in the mold was a real pain in the butt. So what I ended up doing was making this, which was a foaming jacket. So these are plaster bandages. I pulled my first pull out of the mold. I foamed it in the mold. Then I created this, wrap the blank in saran wrap tightly. Then I put plaster bandages on and it made a 2-piece shell that I could then pull hollow blanks from a mold, stick it in that jacket, and foam inside of there. And what that did is that kept the face from blowing out. Sometimes if you see, you know, somebody who's got like a Don post or distortions because they don't have the mold and they foam it, you can end up with kind of a wonky looking version of that mask at that point, because what happens is the foam will blow out the details and it won't look the same. So I did not want that to happen on those Ed Wolves. So I made this foaming jacket and it worked fantastically. So anyway, that's another option that you could do if you wanted to pull blanks and then maybe foam them outside the mold. I could actually come here with this foamed one, which is a really nice pull that's been foamed, and then make a foaming jacket and pull a hollow blank out, put it in a foaming jacket, and then end up with a really, really good example of a foamed blank. So there you go. Anyway, I'm getting ready to foam this guy, but I thought maybe you guys would want to see that because I talked to a few people at Mask Fest about it over the weekend, and I just wanted to show you kind of what I do. See, this is a really good example. Look how far away this latex is shrunk and is pulling away from the edges of this mold. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go around here and make sure that that seam line is not creating. See how the ear is just a little bit smaller than the mold. Now, one of the things you want to do is make sure, stick your hand in there, make sure that I'm not losing any of the form. Yeah, everything feels really good in here. There it is. All right, so there you go. I'm going to mix up some foam now. But yeah, that's just a little thing that I do when I'm foaming a mask that is already pulled away from the edges of the inside of the mold. Hope everybody's having a good night, and I'll talk to you soon.